Hi, wir sind Moni und Kai. Wir haben unsere Zelte in Deutschland abgebrochen, um in unser bis dato größtes Abenteuer aufzubrechen. Zusammen mit unserem selbst ausgebauten Citroën-Jumper Hermann bereisen wir die Panamericana von Uruguay bis nach Alaska. Schön, dass du dabei bist. Werde Teil unserer Reise und lass uns die Amerikas gemeinsam entdecken. Einklinken, Abflug!
So usually our videos are in German, but this time we'll make an exception. We just came back from an awesome trip to Antarctica, and I'm standing here with Lucia, one of our expedition staff, and she's just full of knowledge around the Antarctic and the tourism of the Antarctic, and because some of the things were really, really interesting and unknown to us, we decided to do a quick video to share them with you. So, Lucia, this is your second season on the Ushuaia, right?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Lucia. Yes, this is my second season working on board the MV Ushuaia. This is a small ship, small vessel that visits Antarctica during the summer season.
And what's your background?
I'm a political scientist, actually, so my main focus here on board with lectures is all about the Antarctic treaty system, the political history and challenges for the future of Antarctica, mainly.
That actually brings me to the first question, because Antarctica is huge, but there are no countries in it. So who owns it? Who governs it?
Well, it's kind of a complex question from a historical point of view. Antarctica is actually a huge continent, but since 1959, the Antarctic Treaty was signed. So Antarctica is to remain protected for, of course, peaceful activities, especially for scientific research on an international cooperation basis. So currently, the Antarctic Treaty has 56 members, so 56 countries take on these meetings, and they organize all of the activities and rules for keeping Antarctica protected.
All right. So, I mean, one of the reasons we went to Antarctica, of course, are the penguins, but tourism in general is a big topic for Antarctica. And I mean, we actually see behind us a couple of ships. So how did the tourism in the Antarctic evolve?
Well, tourism in Antarctica started in the summer of 1958 with the first ship. It was a very small vessel that departed from Ushuaia during a few weeks to visit Antarctica. During the second half of the 20th century, the industry grew very slowly but consistently. It was initially a very small industry with small vessels and very few passengers coming to Antarctica. And there was a huge milestone for Antarctic tourism because in 1991, the Madrid Protocol, or the Environmental Protection Protocol for the Antarctic Treaty, was signed. So a lot of companies that were operating here in Antarctica for tourism, they decided to get together and create an organization that's called IAATO, the International Organization or Association for Antarctic Tour Operators. And the idea is to promote good practices, to try to have as low impact as possible, environmentally speaking, when we visit Antarctica. So they promote good practices for sustainable and responsible tourism here in the Antarctic continent. Since the 90s and until today, the industry is still growing, and now it's growing exponentially. We have a lot more cruises coming to Antarctica, bigger ships, and a lot more people. So it's becoming more and more popular and easier to get to Antarctica.
So I really enjoyed the trip. Can I just start a company to share this experience with others?
Well, yes, but you will need a permit from one of the Antarctic Treaty parties. So any of the countries that are members of the Antarctic Treaty are allowed to give a permit to a ship, to a company, to be authorized to operate here in Antarctica.
You've just mentioned the IAATO, the International Organization for Tourism in the Antarctica. As you said, there are many new ships, and IAATO kind of controls the tourism or provides guidelines for tourism. Are all of the tour operators in Antarctica part of IAATO?
Most of them are. It's not actually mandatory. It's, of course, a group of companies at the end, so it's very voluntarily if companies or ships want to join IAATO. However, it's very convenient from a commercial and a practical point of view because we are all in touch, connected all throughout the season, and it's very useful for us to be able to communicate with each other, to organize the tours, and if we have any sort of problem, inconvenient, we are all connected to work together, and especially to protect Antarctica.
Okay. protecting Antarctica, I guess it's really great and a really important thing to do. You just mentioned the ships are getting bigger and bigger. What's the benefit of taking such a small ship like the Ushuaia?
Well, the thing with big ships is that sometimes for navigating very small bays or the very narrow channels, they have a lot of difficulty. So they are more limited than us. With small ships, we can go almost anywhere. We have a lot more options for scenic navigations. And because we are very few passengers here on board, we are less than 90 passengers, we have the chance to do a lot more landings and a lot more activities than bigger cruises, just because it's easier to organize a smaller group of people.
While moving, we just discussed how beautiful the weather was on New Year's in Antarctica. Right now, the weather in Ushuaia hit us again, so it's rain all over, so we moved inside. The last question that we had was about big ships and more people coming to Antarctica. So I'm wondering what kind of impact is there on, like, with more and more people coming and doing the landings, what kind of impact is there on wildlife?
Well, even though we have a lot of restrictions and regulations from the Antarctic Treaty, so they are mandatory for everyone who visits Antarctica, and we also have these guidelines and recommendations of IAATO, which give us a lot of best practices or ways in which we can have less impact. When we visit Antarctica, we can still affect the wildlife, especially penguin colonies. We are, of course, as human beings, stress factors on a lot of animals. And even though we can follow these regulations and be silent and try not to bother the wildlife, we can still make an impact negatively. So that's why we have a system in place to have supervisions and evaluation constantly. So all of the sites that we visit are evaluated by members of IAATO. So if we observe that throughout the seasons we can affect the life of the colony living there, we maybe shut places down or we change some of the regulations in order to lower even more our impact. Usually with tourism, it's mostly about generating stress for animals. So that's why we are always aware of the changes that we might observe during the season. And so that's why we then have to make decisions sometimes to close one site and have some rest for the wildlife for a while, and then we can stop visiting until it gets better again.
Looking ahead, do you think that's enough with more and more ships coming in? I mean, we saw a cruise liner with like thousands of people probably. Do you think that will be enough to keep Antarctica and its wildlife safe?
Well, it's very likely that in the next few years, the Antarctic Treaty will start limiting the industry, especially because during the last few seasons, especially after COVID happened, a lot of ships, big cruises that are doing trips all over the world, not only in Antarctica, started operating here. And they are very, very big vessels with a lot of passengers. So the industry changed really fast from the very small ship-based industry and very few companies operating towards a more massive profile for tourism. So it's very likely that the Antarctic Treaty will start limiting the industry at some point, especially with the sizes of the vessels and the amount of people. This season, we were expecting about 120,000 passengers coming to Antarctica, which is a lot, even if we compare it with the last season or the last few years. So it's very likely that the industry will be limited at some point. Yes.
How long is the season in Antarctica? Is it just, a couple of months, or is it a year?
Well, no, it's only during the summer that it's possible to visit Antarctica. During the winter, we only have some icebreakers that navigate through here only to provide support to the stations, the very few stations in Antarctica for research that are open during the winter. So tourism starts approximately in October or November, and it lasts until the ending of March or the beginning of April. Then it's over. It's just for the summer.
Okay. And hearing you talking about tourism, is tourism your biggest worry you have for the future of Antarctica, or is there something else?
Actually, my biggest concern about the future of not only the Antarctic continent, but also our whole planet is climate change. We have already a lot of data confirming that climate change affects Antarctica in a very specific way, not only the wildlife, but also the ice. The amount of ice in Antarctica is decreasing with time consistently, and so that would mean that if we continue to emit GAIs or CO2 or different gases that cause greenhouse effect, the temperature will continue to rise, and that will mean that the ice in Antarctica will start melting, generating very bad consequences for the whole planet, not only for the Antarctic continent. So my main concern right now is for the next decades is specifically climate change and environmental change. Yes.
Okay, so you've mentioned on one of our boat rides that krill is the basis. So how would climate change affect krill?
Well, yes, actually, krill is the kind of the foundation of the whole ecosystem. Is the first stage of the trophic chain, would mean that all of the animals, birds, whales, penguins, especially, they feed on krill. So the whole population of these animals depend on krill being able to reproduce correctly and in the right amount and pace. So krill, in order to reproduce, needs a very thick layer of sea ice to form. So with the temperature changing and rising, it's more likely that the ice is going to start forming even more to the south or in a less amount. So that would mean that krill population would decrease or move even more south, affecting the whole ecosystem, making colonies go southern and move, making whales have to make longer distances when they travel. Krill is kind of a key point to evaluate and to take care of the Antarctic environment.
All right, so as said, it's a really small ship, and with our move inside, we're kind of blocking people from working. You might have heard it in the background. So one last question: where can people learn more about, Antarctica, its systems, and tourism in Antarctica in general?
Well, actually, the Antarctic Treaty has a lot of information online. There's a webpage. It's in a lot of different languages, all of the official languages of the Antarctic Treaty, which are Spanish, English, Russian, French, Norwegian. I think I'm missing a few. But you can find a lot of information online, even news or after the meetings. The last one was last year in Helsinki, and this year we'll have another Antarctic Treaty annual meeting.
Okay, so you've just mentioned that IAATO provides a lot of information online.
Yes, not only the Antarctic Treaty, but also IAATO. You can find a lot of resources online, and especially IAATO has a policy that intends to make all of the passengers that visit Antarctica Antarctic ambassadors. That means that when you get home, you're going to advocate for this amazing continent, and you have a lot of resources online in order to become an official Antarctic ambassadors, a lot of collaboration programs. Of course, we have a lot of social media you can follow and be updated with the latest news of Antarctic tourism.
Awesome. We'll try to find a list and also to put it in the description below.